The translator spoke in a voice like wind through dead leaves. Ambassador Rin stood before the United Council, her feathered body trembling with what humans would later recognize as genuine grief. She had drawn the short lot among conclave diplomats. Nobody wanted this assignment. Nobody wanted to tell an entire species they were about to die. The rogue neutron star designated KR 7741 will intersect with your solar system in approximately 6 of your months, Rin said. The gravitational disruption will render all planets uninhabitable within days of approach. There will be no survivors. The chamber fell silent. 40 representatives from 40 nations sat frozen in their seats. Secretary General Delia Okonkwo gripped the edge of her podium until her knuckles turned pale. "What assistance can the conclave provide?" she asked. Her voice did not shake. She would not allow it to shake. Rin's avian eyes blinked slowly. "Secretary General, please understand. The logistics of evacuating 8 billion beings in 6 months is beyond any civilization's capability. We have consulted 17 species. We have run 4,000 simulations. There is no scenario in which meaningful rescue is possible. Then send what ships you can, save who you can. To what end? A few thousand refugees with no home world, no resources, no future." Rin spread her wings in what humans would learn was a gesture of helplessness. "The conclave offers its deepest condolences. We will ensure humanity's cultural archives are preserved in the great library of Nixos. Your species will be remembered." Delia stared at the alien diplomat for a long moment. Around her, she could hear the sounds of despair beginning. Someone was crying, someone else was praying. A Brazilian representative had collapsed in his seat. "Ambassador Rin," Delia said quietly, "thank you for delivering this news in person. I understand it was not easy, but I must ask you to leave now." Rin tilted her head. "Secretary General, Earth needs to have a conversation, and we need to have it alone." The alien diplomat departed, the chamber doors sealed, and then Delia did something that surprised everyone, including herself. She laughed. It was not a happy sound. It was the laugh of someone who had just been told the rules no longer applied. 6 months, she said. "They have given us 6 months to die." She looked around the room at faces frozen in shock. "And terror? I reject their timeline. I reject their simulations. I reject their condolences and their cultural archives and their certainty that we cannot be saved." "Madame Secretary," the Russian delegate said weakly, "perhaps we should discuss this rationally." Rationally, we should all go home and hug our children and wait to burn. Rationally, there is no hope." Delia walked down from the podium and stood among them as an equal, not a leader. "But humans have never been rational. We have been stubborn. We have been foolish. We have been brave beyond all reason, and I am asking you now to be unreasonable with me." In the corner of the chamber, a thin woman with gray-streaked hair raised her hand. Dr. Femi Ademi had been invited as a scientific consultant. She had not expected to speak. "I have an idea," she said. "It is probably impossible, but I have an idea." Within an hour, the Ark Protocol was born. The plan was simple in concept and insane in execution. Humanity would build ships, not rescue vessels waiting for alien saviors, but generation ships designed to carry humans across the void for centuries if necessary. They would launch everything they could into space. They would save everyone they could, and they would run. "Where will we go?" asked the Chinese delegate. "Anywhere but here," Femi replied. "We find a new home or we die searching, but we die on our feet, moving forward, not on our knees waiting for the fire." The vote was unanimous. For the first time in human history, every nation agreed on something. Perhaps it took the end of the world to make humanity whole. Sergeant Nadia Petrova was assigned as military liaison to the Ark Protocol 3 days later. She was a skeptic by nature and a soldier by training. She did not believe in miracles. "This is fantasy," she told Delia during their first meeting. "We cannot build ships fast enough. We cannot fuel them. We cannot feed the passengers. The math does not work." "Then change the math," Delia said. "That is not how mathematics works." Sergeant, 3 weeks ago we were alone in the universe. 2 weeks ago we learned we would die in 6 months. 1 week ago we decided to live anyway. I no longer have patience for the phrase that is not how it works. We will make it work or we will die trying. Those are our only options. Nadia stared at this woman, who should have been broken by the weight of 8 billion lives. Instead, she seemed almost peaceful. You really believe we can do this? Nadia said. I believe we have to try. Belief in success is optional, trying is not. That night, Dahlia addressed the world. Every screen on every continent showed her face. She did not offer false comfort. She did not hide the truth. She told humanity exactly what was coming and exactly what she proposed to do about it. They gave us 6 months to die, she said. I say we give ourselves forever to live. We will build, we will launch, we will run, and if the universe thinks it can kill us that easily, it has forgotten who we are. We are the species that crawled out of caves and reached for the stars. We do not go quietly. We do not go gently. We go together or we do not go at all. Across the world, people wept. But when they finished weeping, they stood up. They walked to factories and shipyards and laboratories. They began to build. The neutron star was coming, and humanity was getting ready to run. Nobody slept anymore. Sleep was a luxury for species that had time. Humanity had 6 months and every hour counted. In the shipyards of Shanghai, welders worked in rotating shifts that never ended. In the factories of Detroit, assembly lines that once built cars now produced hull plating. In the mines of South Africa, workers pulled ore from the earth with hands that bled and backs that ached. They did not complain. How could anyone complain about sore muscles when the alternative was extinction? Yusuf Rahman was 73 years old. He had spent 40 years building spacecraft for various governments and corporations. He had never built anything like this. The vessel taking shape above him was ugly, practical, and enormous. It had no graceful curves or elegant design. It was a box meant to keep humans alive across the endless dark of space. It is beautiful, he whispered to himself. His assistant, a young woman named Priya, looked at him strangely. Sir, it looks like a shipping container with engines. It looks like hope. That is beautiful enough. The Ark Protocol had calculated that humanity could build and launch vessels capable of carrying 2 million people in the time remaining. 2 million out of 8 billion. The selection process had nearly torn the world apart. At first, governments proposed choosing the wealthy, the powerful, the connected. This lasted approximately 4 hours before riots erupted on every continent. The wealthy had bunkers and private spacecraft. They did not need the arcs. The people in the streets did. Then came the skills-based proposals. Engineers, doctors, scientists, farmers, people who could rebuild civilization. This was more popular but still controversial. What about artists, teachers, philosophers? Was humanity worth saving if they saved only the practical and left behind the dreamers? Finally, they settled on the lottery. 70% of Ark passengers would be chosen randomly from every nation on Earth. 30% would be essential personnel. No one could buy their way aboard. No one could bribe their way to safety. Everyone had the same chance to live. The lottery was unfair, but it was equally unfair to everyone, and that was the best humanity could manage. Dr. Femi Ademi had barely eaten in 3 weeks. She lived in her laboratory, surrounded by equations and empty coffee cups. Her team had discovered something remarkable in the data from deep space telescopes. A fold in spacetime approximately 4 light-years from Earth. A shortcut that could cut their journey from centuries to decades. The problem was that the fold was unstable. Ships entering at the wrong angle would be torn apart. Ships entering at the right angle might survive. Might. There were no guarantees. We need to test it, her assistant said. We have no time for tests. We have no ships to waste on tests. We either use the fold or we do not. That is insane. Everything about this is insane. We are building an Exodus fleet in 6 months to escape a neutron star. Sanity left us weeks ago. On the 47th day of the Ark Protocol, something unexpected happened. A ship appeared in Earth orbit. It was ancient, covered in dust and cosmic radiation. It had been traveling for thousands of years. The Hollow had come. They were dying. Their species had suffered a plague generations ago that left them sterile. No new Hollow had been born in centuries. Their civilization was fading, their cities empty, their ships abandoned. They had heard Earth's distress call and had come to make an offer. "We have 17 colony vessels," their representative said through a translation device. "They are empty. Our people have no use for them. We will give them to you." Dahlia could barely speak. In exchange for what? "Our cultural archives, our history, our art and music and stories. Take them with you, carry our memory into the future. Let the Hollow be remembered even after the last of us dies." It was the first gift one species had ever given another without expecting anything in return. The Hollow did not want resources or territory or political favors. They wanted only to be remembered. Humanity accepted. The 17 Hollow ships were old but functional. With modifications, each could carry 100,000 humans. The 2 million became nearly 4 million. It was still not enough. It would never be enough, but it was more than they had before. On the 90th day, the neutron star became visible in the night sky, a point of blue-white light that grew brighter each week. Parents tried to explain to their children why they had to leave. Some children understood, most simply trusted their parents and held their hands tighter. Yusuf received his lottery ticket on the 92nd day. He stared at it for a long time. Then he walked to the refugee processing center and found a pregnant woman sitting alone, crying. "What is wrong?" he asked. "My husband did not win the lottery. I did. He wants me to go without him to save the baby." Yusuf sat down beside her. He thought about his wife who had died 3 years ago. He thought about his children who had grown and had children of their own, scattered across different arcs. He thought about the ship he had helped build with his own aging hands. "Take this," he said, pressing his ticket into her palm. "I cannot. This is your life. I have had my life, 73 years of it. This is your child's life. That matters more." The woman wept. Yusuf smiled and walked away. He returned to the shipyard. There was still work to do. On the 180th day, the first arc launched, then the second, then the third. One by one, the vessels rose from Earth's surface and climbed toward the stars. Below them, billions watched and waved and wept. Yusuf stood among them, his face turned toward the sky. "Go," he whispered. "Go and live, go and remember us." The last arc broke atmosphere on the 182nd day. 3 days later, the neutron star's gravity began to tear Earth apart. But by then, humanity was already gone, running, hoping, alive. The 6 months were over. The 10,000 years were just beginning. The old woman's hands shook as she held the picture. It showed a blue marble hanging. In darkness, swirled with white clouds and green continents. The children sitting before her did not understand what they were seeing. "This was Earth," she said. "This was home." A boy named Tao raised his hand. "Elder Amara, what is a home?" Amara Okonkwo closed her eyes. She was the 7th generation to be born aboard the Ark Persistence. She had never breathed air that did not come from recyclers. She had never felt rain on her face or grass beneath her feet. Yet somehow, she missed Earth more than the children who had no idea what it was. "A home is a place where you belong," she said. "A place that knows your name." "The ship knows our names," Tao said, confused. Yes, I suppose it does." 500 years had passed since the Exodus. The fleet had scattered across the void, each ark following its own path, its own hope. Communication between ships had become difficult, then rare, then silent. Each vessel was an island now, alone in the endless night. Amara was the captain of Persistence, though she had never asked for the role. Her great-grandmother had been a shuttle pilot during the Exodus. Her grandmother had been a navigator. Her mother had been first officer. When the previous captain died, the crew had simply looked at Amara and nodded. Leadership had become hereditary, not because anyone planned it, but because no one had the energy to argue. The Persistence carried 47,000 humans. It also carried ghosts. Every generation lost a little more of Earth. The first generation had remembered the smell of flowers and the taste of real fruit. The second generation remembered their parents crying about such things. The third generation began to doubt whether flowers had ever existed at all. By the fifth generation, Earth had become religion. People prayed to the blue planet, asking forgiveness for some great sin that had caused their exile. Amara did not pray. She read the archives instead. She studied the original mission logs, the speeches, the desperate calculations of Dr. Femi Ademi. She watched the recording of Delia Okonkwo's address to humanity over and over until she could recite it from memory. They gave us 6 months to die. I say we give ourselves forever to live. Those words kept her moving when despair pressed down on her shoulders. Not every ark had survived the centuries intact. The New Dawn had gone silent 200 years ago. No one knew if they had found a planet or died in the void. The Promise had suffered a reactor failure that killed everyone aboard within hours. The Solidarity had fractured into warring factions that eventually tore the ship apart from the inside. But most had endured, most had adapted, most had found ways to keep living even when living seemed pointless. The Remembrance had become something strange and beautiful. Its passengers had merged with the hollow archives, studying the dead civilization's philosophy and art. Over generations, they had developed a hybrid culture that was neither human nor hollow, but something new. Their children learned to sing hollow morning songs alongside human lullabies. They painted with techniques borrowed from both species. They believed that carrying the hollow's memory was not a burden but a gift. Amara had spoken with the captain of Remembrance once, decades ago, before the communication arrays failed completely. He had told her that his people no longer considered themselves refugees. They were inheritors. They carried 2 civilizations within them, and that made them rich beyond measure. "But you are still lost," Amara had said. "You still have no home." "Every ship is a home," he had replied. "Every generation is a nation. We stopped being homeless the moment we stopped waiting to arrive." Amara had not understood then. She was beginning to understand now. A plague swept through the fleet in the 423rd year. It jumped from ship to ship through the rare supply exchanges that still occurred. 3 arks lost thousands of passengers before a teenage medic named Kofi, working aboard the Persistence, found a cure buried in the hollow biological archives. The hollow had faced a similar disease millennia ago. Their cure, adapted for human biology, saved countless lives. The dead species had saved the living. Amara wept when she heard the news. On the 498th day of the 500th year, the long-range sensors detected something. A planet. Not just any planet, but a world with liquid water and breathable atmosphere. A world where humans might actually live. Amara gathered her crew and read them Delia's speech one final time. "They gave us 6 months. We have taken 500 years. We are not done yet." The fleet changed course. For the first time in generations, they had a destination. They had hope. But as they drew closer, sensors revealed something else. The planet was not empty. Someone already lived there. Amara stared at the readings and felt her stomach turn cold. "What do we do?" her first officer asked. "We do what we have always done," Amara said quietly. "We survive. Whatever it takes, we survive." The Persistence flew on toward the green world, toward the unknown, toward whatever came next. 500 years down. 9,500 to go. Kyrek had spent his entire life studying dead civilizations. He was a scholar of extinction, cataloging the rise and fall of species that no longer existed. He found comfort in the past because it never changed, never surprised, never threatened. The past was safe. The present was terrifying. The Verith had watched the strange fleet approach for 60 years. At first, the elders had hoped it would pass by. Then they had hoped it would go away. Now they hoped it would not destroy them all. The Wandering Plague, the High Council called them. It was an old legend passed down through 1,000 generations. a nomadic species that traveled between stars, consuming world after world, leaving nothing but ash behind. Every Varith child learned to fear the plague. Every Varith adult believed it was myth. It was not myth, it was coming straight toward Verdana. Kyrek did not believe the humans were the plague. He had intercepted their broadcasts decades ago and had spent his life studying them in secret. He had learned their languages, cataloged their music, analyzed their art. He had watched recordings of their history and wept at their wars and marveled at their kindness. No species that created such beauty could be the plague. He was certain of it. He was also alone in that certainty. The first contact went badly. A Varith patrol encountered a human scout ship and in a moment of terror opened fire. The human vessel was damaged. 3 crew members died. When news reached the fleet, voices rose demanding revenge. They attacked us without warning, the human military commander argued. They drew first blood, we cannot show weakness. Dr. Nia Asant listened to the arguments and felt sick. She was Kofi's granddaughter, raised on stories of the Hollow Gift and the Plague Cure. She had grown up believing that humanity's greatest strength was not violence but connection. If they answered the Varith attack with war, everything her grandfather had believed would die. "Let me try," she said. "Let me talk to them." "They shot at us," the commander replied. "Because they were afraid. Fear makes people do terrible things. If we answer fear with violence, we become the monsters they believe us to be." The commander laughed bitterly. "You want to make peace with beings who killed our people." "I want to survive. War will destroy us both. We have wandered for 500 years. We cannot wander forever. If we do not find a home here, we will die in the void. Is pride worth extinction?" The Fleet Council debated for 3 days. In the end, they agreed to let Nia try. She had 90 days to prevent a war. Kyrek received the transmission on a private channel he had thought was secure. A human voice, speaking in heavily accented but recognizable Varith. Someone had been studying them just as he had studied humanity. "My name is Nia Asant. I am a healer, not a warrior. I believe we can help each other. I believe we do not have to be enemies. Will you meet with me?" Kyrek knew he should report this to the council. He knew that secret communication with the enemy was treason. He also knew that if he did nothing, both species would burn. He answered. They met on a small moon between Verdana and the human fleet. Neutral ground. Nia came alone. Kyrek came alone. They stood 20 meters apart and studied each other in silence. Kyrek was insected, his body covered in iridescent plates that shifted color with his emotions. He had 4 arms and compound eyes that saw in spectrums Nia could not imagine. To human eyes, he was alien, strange, perhaps frightening. To Nia, he was beautiful. "Your people think we are the wandering plague," she said. "My people are afraid." "So are mine. We have been running for 500 years. We lost our home. We lost our planet. We lost billions of people. We do not want to lose anyone else." Kyrek's plates shimmered blue, a color Nia would later learn meant sorrow. "We have never lost anything. Verdana has been ours for 10,000 years. We do not know what it means to have nothing. We do not understand how you still exist. We had each other, that was enough." Kyrek moved closer. Nia did not step back. "Your species lost everything," he said softly. "And still you made art, you wrote songs, you told stories. You loved each other and raised children and dreamed of better days. How is that possible?" "Because hope is not something you have, it is something you choose. Every day, every moment you choose to keep going. You choose to believe tomorrow might be better. That is how we survived, not with weapons, not with technology, with stubborn, foolish hope." Kyrek extended one of his 4 hands. Nia took it. "Teach us," he said. "Teach my people what you know, show us how to survive loss, and we will give you a home." The negotiations took years. The treaty was imperfect. Humanity would settle Verdana's southern continent. They would never number more than 10 million. They would share technology and culture with the Varith. They would live as guests, not conquerors. It was not ideal, but it was peace. On the day the first human child was born on Verdana's soil, Nia sent a message to the fleet. "We did it. After 500 years, we have a home again." Somewhere in the archives, the recording of Delia Okonkwo's speech played on. And somewhere on a small moon, two figures from different worlds stood together, watching the stars. They had chosen hope. It had been enough. The child was 7 years old when she first asked the forbidden question. "Mother, why do they hate us?" Her mother, a diplomat named Sira, paused in the doorway of their home on Verdana. Outside, protesters marched through the streets. They were not Verith protesters. They were human protesters demanding the right to expand beyond the southern continent. The treaty was 6,000 years old now. Humanity had outgrown it. "They do not hate us," Sira said carefully. "They fear us." "But why?" Sira knelt beside her daughter and smoothed her hair. "Because we did something impossible. We survived when everyone said we would die, and some people find that frightening." The Galactic Conclave had been watching humanity for 5,000 years. At first, they had watched with curiosity. A dead species walking, a footnote that refused to be written. Then curiosity had turned to concern. Humans spread to 40 worlds in 4 millennia. They built cities and stations and ships. They made alliances with the Verith and the restored Hollow civilization. They traded and negotiated and thrived. The species that had been given 6 months to die was now one of the fastest-growing civilizations in the galaxy, and the old empires were not pleased. "They breed too quickly," the Conclave representative said in the Great Council chamber. "They expand too aggressively. They destabilize established trade routes and political agreements." Ambassador Rin's descendant, a weathered avian named Kira, listened in silence. Her family had been disgraced for centuries. Her ancestor had failed to save humanity, and the Rin lineage had paid the price. They had been stripped of titles, pushed to the margins of conclave society. But Kira had never believed her ancestor was wrong. She had studied the old records. Ambassador Rin had wept when delivering the death sentence to Earth. She had tried to convince the conclave to help. She had failed, but she had tried. Now Kira was trying too. "The humans have violated no laws," she said quietly. "They exist, that is violation enough." Kira's feathers bristled. "They were given a death sentence. They refused it. You cannot punish a species for choosing to live." "We can if their living threatens everyone else." The Cold War began slowly, then all at once. Trade embargoes strangled human colonies. Proxy wars erupted along the borders. Conclave ships patrolled human space, waiting for an excuse to strike. The human coalition did not want war. They had spent 6,000 years building, not destroying, but they would not surrender either. They would not accept population controls or territorial limits. They would not bow to empires that had left them to die. "We will defend ourselves," the coalition president announced. "We will not fire the first shot, but we will fire the last one." Kira watched the broadcasts with growing dread. She had spent decades arguing for peace. She had believed that diplomacy could prevent catastrophe, but the old empires did not want peace. They wanted humanity contained, controlled, diminished. She made a decision that would end her career and possibly her life. She contacted the human coalition directly. "I cannot stop what is coming," she said. "But I can tell you what I know: fleet positions, supply lines, weaknesses. Use this information to survive." The human diplomat on the other end of the transmission stared at her. "Why would you help us? Your government wants us destroyed." "My government is wrong. My ancestor tried to save your people and failed. I will not fail again." The intelligence Kira provided saved 3 human colonies from surprise attacks. It gave the coalition time to prepare defenses, to rally allies, to survive the first wave of the war. But the war was not one with weapons. It was one with something far stranger. Admiral Voros commanded the Conclave's Third Fleet. He had been ordered to bombard the human colony of New Horizon until nothing remained. His ships surrounded the planet. His weapons were armed. Victory was certain. Then his communication officer received a transmission from the surface. Not a surrender, not a threat, a song. It was a children's choir, 300 voices singing a welcome hymn that humans had composed for first contact scenarios. The song spoke of friendship and hope and open hands. It was simple and sincere and utterly disarming. Voros listened for a long time. He thought about his own children. He thought about what kind of galaxy he was building for them. He thought about the faces of those singers, invisible on the planet below, who had chosen to welcome their executioner with music. "Admiral," his first officer asked, "shall we proceed with the bombardment?" Voros closed his eyes. "No," he said, "we withdraw." "Sir, our orders." "I know what our orders are. I also know what they ask us to become. I will not murder children who sing to me. I will not be that kind of soldier. Withdraw, now." The Third Fleet left New Horizon intact. Admiral Voros was court-martialed, but his refusal spread through the conclave military like wildfire. Other commanders began to question their orders. Other soldiers began to wonder if they were fighting the right enemy. The conclave sued for peace 6 months later. They could not maintain a war when their own people no longer believed in it. The trial was Kira's idea, not a war crimes tribunal, something different, a reckoning. Let humanity stand before the galaxy and answer one question: how did you survive? The conclave agreed. Perhaps they hoped the answer would be shameful. Perhaps they hoped to find evidence of brutality or deception. They would be disappointed. 10,000 years after the Exodus began, humanity was summoned to explain itself. The testimony was about to begin. The great forum of the conclave was older than most civilizations. Its walls had witnessed the rise and fall of empires, the birth of alliances, the end of wars. Trillions of beings across 1,000 worlds watched the broadcast. This was not just a trial. This was history. Humanity stood accused of unlawful persistence. The charge was absurd. Everyone knew it was absurd. You could not put a species on trial for surviving. But the old empires needed an answer. They needed to understand how a doomed people had become a galactic power. They needed to know if humanity was a threat or a miracle. The human delegation entered the forum in simple clothes. No military uniforms, no political symbols, just ordinary people representing an extraordinary journey. Their speaker was a woman named Adiz. She was not a president or a general or a diplomat. She was a schoolteacher from a small colony world. She had been chosen because she was normal, because she represented what humanity had become after 10,000 years. "State your name for the record," the conclave judge commanded. "Adiz Akhefer, I teach children." "You have been selected to speak for your entire species. Do you understand the gravity of this proceeding?" Adiz smiled gently. "I understand that you are confused. You look at humanity and you see something that should not exist. You see a mistake in the mathematics of the universe. So you put us on trial, hoping we will explain ourselves in terms you understand." The conclave simply wishes to understand how humanity survived against impossible odds. "Then let me show you." Adiz raised her hand. The forum screens flickered to life, showing a recording 10,000 years old. A woman with dark skin and tired eyes stood before a frightened world. "They gave us 6 months to die. I say we give ourselves forever to live." The voice of Delia Okonkwo echoed through the chamber. Conclave members shifted uncomfortably. This was not what they had expected. "This is how we survived," Adiz said. "Not with weapons, not with superior technology, with stubbornness, with love, with the absolute refusal to accept that we were finished." She gestured again. New images appeared. The hollow ships, ancient and weathered, joining the human fleet. The hollow representative explaining their gift. "The hollow gave us their vessels in exchange for one thing, that we carry their memory. They were dying. They had no future, but they gave everything they had left to strangers because they believed we would keep them alive in our hearts. We did. The hollow live on in our culture, our art, our philosophy. They trusted us, and we honored that trust." The screens changed again. A young insectoid scholar named Kyric, extending his 4 hands toward a human woman. Teach us how to survive loss. The Vareth feared us, Adiz continued. They thought we were the wandering plague from their legends. They shot at us. They nearly destroyed us. But instead of answering violence with violence, we sent a healer. We sent near a Sant who believed that fear could be answered with patience. The Vareth are our allies now, our friends, our family. Kyric's descendants call humanity nestkin. We did not conquer them. We joined them. The screens showed the children's choir of New Horizon, singing their welcome hymn to the warships above. Admiral Voros was ordered to kill these children. He refused, not because he was weak, because he was strong enough to recognize that some orders must be disobeyed. He sacrificed his career to spare innocent lives. That is what humanity taught the galaxy. That mercy is not weakness. That compassion takes more courage than cruelty. Adiz stepped forward, closer to the judge's platform than protocol allowed. No one stopped her. You gave us 6 months to die. We did not argue. We did not beg. We built ships with bleeding hands. We saved who we could and mourned who we could not. We carried the dead in our memories and the living in our arms. We found new friends in the void. We made mistakes. We fought when we should have talked. We talked when we should have listened. We learned. We grew. We changed. She spread her hands wide. 10,000 years later, we are still here. Not because we conquered. Not because we were stronger or smarter or more ruthless. Because we refused to stop loving each other long enough to die. Because every time the universe tried to break us, we held on tighter. Because hope is not something you find. It is something you build brick by brick, day by day, generation after generation. The forum was silent. No one moved, no one spoke. You want to know our secret? Adiz asked. Here it is. We are afraid. We have always been afraid, but we do not let fear make our choices. We choose hope even when hope is foolish. We choose love even when love hurts. We choose to keep going even when the math says we should stop. That is humanity. That is who we are. That is why we survived. She turned to leave, then paused. You can convict us if you want. You can declare our existence a crime against the natural order, but you cannot undo what we have done. You cannot erase 10,000 years of survival, and you cannot stop us from choosing hope again. Tomorrow, the judges deliberated for 3 hours. When they returned, their verdict was simple. The charges are dismissed. Humanity is not guilty of survival. Humanity is an example of it. The broadcast ended. Across the galaxy, species that had hoarded resources began to share. Empires that had feared change began to welcome refugees. The trial had changed everything. Adiz returned home to her classroom. Her students were waiting, buzzing with questions. Teacher, what did you tell them? A young boy asked. Adiz sat down among her children and smiled. The truth that we were given 6 months to die, and we chose to live instead. That night she stood on her balcony and looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there, the descendants of Earth still traveled, still built, still hoped. 10,000 years down. Forever to go. And humanity was just getting started.